This is a production of China Central Television America.
Childhood obesity has become a global health threat. The consequences are dire, but now health advocates have a world champion in their corner in the fight against childhood obesity and juvenile diabetes. I'm Mike Walder in Los Angeles. Let's take it full frame. Much of the world knows him as one of the most iconic American sports figures of our time, a world-class boxing champion, an Olympic gold medalist, and the first boxer ever to win titles in 5 different weight classes. Pretty amazing. These days, Sugar Ray Leonard is retired, but he's still fighting the good fight. Now he's raising funds for research and awareness towards a cure for juvenile diabetes through the foundation he and his wife, Bernadette, founded back in 2009. He's bringing the same winning spirit he displayed in the boxing ring to his fight against this disease. Sugar Ray Leonard, I want to welcome you to Full Frame. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Mike. How you doing, Mike?
Great. So tell us the story, because it's almost something that happens accidentally. Your brother Roger figures into your efforts to become a boxer, I've heard.
Well, you know, when I think about my career, which has not been short of illustrious because of my era and because of, you know, free network television back in the day, that it all started because my brother Roger would punch me or beat me up just because I was there. I mean, there was no apparent reason why he would punch on me. And because I was such a quiet kid, reserved kid, that one day he invited me to the gym, to the boxing gym. I went there and I was 14 years of age, put the gloves on, and all of a sudden, it was like I found boxing, boxing found me, or we found each other. And that's where it all started. It started in Palmer Park, Maryland.
And so then you became Sugar Ray and he became Scared Roger?
The Scared Roger.
I mean, he created a Frankenstein in a way. I mean...
He did. Actually, he did. And the fact that I'm so opposite of what I've been able to accomplish in the ring. I'm so different than that because I'm first of all, I'm non-confrontational. I'm very quiet, reserved, and all those other factors. But in the ring, I felt in control, and I was dominant, and I was pretty tough.
So you win the gold medal, you win all these titles. Is there one fight or one victory that stands out, or one title or award that means more to you?
I can say without hesitation that winning the gold medal in 1976, Montreal against Alvaro Sardamas, who was a Cuban fighter, winning that gold medal, that was priceless to me. That had more significance, especially as I get older, because I think about it, because it was what I trained so hard to become, an Olympic gold medal winner. Because winning that gold medal for my country and for myself was the proudest moment of my life.
It's amazing. But there has to be a point, I think, in your career where maybe you enter the ring and you think, geez, I wish I was an accountant, where maybe it was a bad night, and because it's a tough way to make a living. I mean, if you're not on top of your game, the results are right there. I mean, aren't they?
You are so right. But also, as a fighter, I knew in the dressing room if I was going to win or lose.
Why? What would happen?
I also believe in biorhythms. I would look into that mirror before going out into the ring. And if I saw Sugar Ray Leonard, I'm okay. I'm going to win the fight. But if I see Ray Leonard, the civilian, it's going to be a long night. It's not going to be a pretty night. There are times that I'm able to look into that mirror and see a winner, because everything is in place. All the stars have lined up. I've put in all the training, and my mental stability is solid. My spiritual stability is solid. That's when I walk out there as a winner. But there are those moments where I wish I could have postponed the fight for at least 24 hours.
But I think in life, it's interesting. We have our successes, but we also have the times where we fall down, the failures. But in many cases, we can learn a lot more about ourselves and about life through the failures. And you've had some tough times as well. What did overcoming that type of adversity teach you about Sugar Ray Leonard?
I do motivational speaking around the world, and I talk about being a fighter, because we're all fighters to a large degree. Outside the boxing ring, we get knocked down. We need a great corner. We got to do our version of road work, which is due diligence and what have you. You got to believe in ourselves when no one else does. Determination, all those, the same principles that I applied to become a world champion are applicable in everyday life. But I was able to pick myself up. My bouts with alcohol, because I'm an alcoholic, with drugs, sexually abused as a young teenager. All those things I faced, but I suppressed them. I kept them inside. I didn't want to talk about those things because it would show signs of weakness, because there's a stigma to everything, to sexual child abuse, to being an alcoholic, to be not a great father or parent or what have you. I tell people to get up, to speak out. Using those same principles that made me into the fighter I was, helps out tremendously.
But you've touched so many lives by being so honest about these things too. I mean, you must know that. People must come up and talk to you about this all the time.
When I made the revelations about being sexually abused as a kid, as a teenager, I've received so many letters from people all over the world. I've been approached by random individuals, adults, young people, who simply say nothing but embrace me, share a tear, and say thank you. That to me is priceless. Of being a human being, of being a father, being a husband, of being a friend, for what I've been able to give back to the world, if you will, means so much more to me than when I did this.
But now you've got another fight. In 2009, you started the foundation, juvenile diabetes. It's a huge problem. Have you seen strides made in the 5 years since you started?
I got involved with juvenile diabetes research because even back in the 70s, when I turned professional, I would go to elementary schools and hospitals, and it was always about the kids for me. I always want to give them a sense of hope, a confidence, a confidence builder. But I noticed that there were so many kids that I had a chance to meet that were not in great health, that were diabetic. My dad is a diabetic, and although he's 91, he's still a diabetic. Right. My friends, their kids are type 1 diabetics. And my wife and I started this foundation to raise awareness and raise funds that would go towards research. But we as a country, we as individuals must all come together to stop this pandemic.
You were talking a little bit about diet, but one of the things that I'm sure you see, I mean, I can remember as a kid, my mom would say, go out and play. You got to get outside.
Yes,
and now there's so many devices and everything. And you went to the gym. I think that kids seem so much more sedentary today. Any advice you give to parents about, and obviously diet's a big component of this, but, exercises as well?
Exercise, without question, is medicine. It really is. It's medicine. And I see our kids, more so now, I see my teenagers who are constantly on the computer or texting each other, and everything now is more laid back, and they rather stay inside than go outside to recess and run around, because they have so many, unfortunate opportunities to not go outside.
So as a parent, I mean, any advice you give to other parents? What do you do with the kids? I'm taking the devices away, or how do you get them inspired?
Have them call me, or I should call them. I'm looking for suggestions too, because I'm a parent, and it's not easy. It's not easy, you know. Kids need to follow the image of their parents, you know. But you have to start that young. You have to start at a very young age to keep kids going outside and playing and being, you know, be outside. Be outside.
You know, one of the exports from the United States is obesity. I mean, we're seeing childhood obesity in other countries. Mexico's got a huge problem with it. Is there anything out there on the horizon that gives you hope that perhaps this is something we can tackle and bring under control?
I am an optimist, you know, first and foremost. And I think that we just have to encourage our kids to get out there and play and take advantage of that youth and that energy and enjoy themselves. Yes, I mean that's basically all I can say about that, because it's a tough nut to crack.
You say you're an optimist. When do you think we can turn the corner on juvenile diabetes?
Oh, we're starting to turn the corner now. I mean, there's been numerous devices that's been made to minimize the pain and agony and the discomfort of so many kids who are diabetic. But we just got to keep moving. We just got to, you know, be outside and enjoy running, enjoy bike riding, and enjoy just being outdoors, working the body, breaking a sweat.
You know, you say keep moving. One of the things that's interesting, I think, intriguing about your career, and I'm sure you've gotten a lot of grief about it, is I don't think anybody's retired as much as you have. I mean, you would retire and then you come back in. And was it just that you loved it so much it was tough to take a step back from it, or?
You know, Mike, I came back those times, which was a lot of times. In fact, I forgot how many times. How many times were I to come back?
I think at least 4 or 5. Right?
No, more than that. Get a calculator. I came back because I felt safer in the ring, because of what I was dealing with at the time, whether it was the sexual child abuse or just not wanting to be an alcoholic. All the things that all the obstacles I was dealing with would go away when I went back into the ring, because I was being productive. I was working out, and I was fighting in 4 squares that I could control. But at some point, you know, especially you get 35, 30, you get 40, you don't have the same desire, the same drive to be productive.
Okay, you mentioned desire, and if there's one thing that I definitely don't have, it's desire to get into the gym and work out every day. It's like you are in great shape. How do you? I mean, what's your regimen like?
Listen, I hate it too. I enjoy working out because of the way I feel afterwards. I feel I'm ready to go to work. I'm ready to go to the office and everything else, because I'm sweating and I feel great, and I can eat those French fries now. But for me, it's therapy. It's therapy for me. But if I work out in the morning, people say, well, I don't have time to work out. You do have time to work out. Give yourself a half an hour, and don't do much. Just do enough. Especially as we get older. I'm 50. I'll be 58 in May. I listen to my body a lot more now. Sometimes I procrastinate. I am no different than you are. You know.
58, you look like you're 38. I have to ask 2 more questions, quick ones, because we're just about out of time. One of them's from the producer, because I know you're a boxer. I don't want to take a hit for this one. But she said, have you thought about changing your name to No More Sugar Ray Leonard, you know, because of the diabetes thing? No more sugar.
No more sugar. Sugar is what brings awareness to this pandemic. Sugar Ray is what people would stop for a second to hear. I have to use that to make that change in people's lives.
All right. And do you think maybe I could go a round or 2 with you? Any chance?
The way you did your hands just now, don't ever do that.
I knew that was going to be the response. I'll work on my form. Sugar Ray Leonard, just a delight. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Coming up, we'll take a closer look at the causes and innovative solutions to the growing problem of childhood obesity. There's an obesity epidemic among low-income families in the U.S. It's also producing a huge spike in childhood obesity. But the causes of this growing health threat go deeper than a poor diet of junk food and too many hours of channel surfing and video games. Many low-income neighborhoods in American cities have become food deserts with little or no access to fresh fruits and vegetables. Full-frame contributor Sandra Hughes visited communities in Los Angeles where parents and volunteers are taking action to give young people healthier food options and educate them about the importance of diet and exercise.
You know what I'm saying? Your hand got to be wet when you put it in. Oh, okay. Put a little more.
South Los Angeles mom Lawana Biggers knows firsthand how diabetes affects a family.
It's going to be hot water cornbread. You just pat it
Her
up.
mom died of it, and her father is very ill with the disease. She's scared for her own children's health.
That's what I worry about. The kids getting childhood diabetes, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. Okay, that's enough. Let's get the onions. Make them good and healthy and strong.
She's easing off her fried food diet and adding fresh greens.
You're a big girl.
Her son Aaron has his own garden just a block from their home.
I'm transferring my cabbage into a line so it can be all even and neat.
About 215,000 youth under 20 years old had diabetes in the United States in 2010. That's about 1 in 400. According to the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, about 3,700 young people are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes each year. Obesity is one of the biggest risk factors. 1 in 5 children in Los Angeles County is considered either overweight or obese. Neighborhood gardening can grow healthy eating habits and hopefully reverse course for those kids headed toward diabetes. First 5 Los Angeles has funded several community gardens in low-income neighborhoods in Los Angeles,
Okay, pour it in, water.
where it's often easier to find corner markets than large grocery stores with fresh produce.
First 5 LA here in Los Angeles is really trying to curb childhood obesity, and very early on. So they're focused on 0 to 5-year-olds.
We're gonna bring it over to the big yard. Bring it over to the...
Children are here with their families, taking part in growing it, and then really learning how to appreciate their food.
The idea is working. Many have planted a stake in their health, from the youngest little gardener
We got peas and carrots and strawberries.
to a grandmother who wants to encourage a diet heavy on vegetables.
Just the idea of them being able to see things grow, and that everything don't grow in the grocery store. And they put the seed in the ground and watch it grow up, and then we eat it.
It's really good? I think so.
What are you waiting for? Let's move!
The First Lady of the United States has made fighting the childhood obesity epidemic her cause during her husband's time in office.
I can't hear you! Are you ready to do that?
In 2010, she launched a campaign to get kids moving and continues to promote exercise and healthy eating at events nationwide, often with celebrity friends in tow.
Hi, we're here in the White House kitchen looking for a healthy snack to eat.
Gee, I bet you could get just anything you want in this kitchen.
And she turned part of the White House lawn into a vegetable garden to bring attention to the need for engaging children in making healthy decisions.
And we also wanted to use it as a way to talk about One of the issues that is important to me and has been something that I've talked about a lot as First Lady is ending the epidemic of childhood obesity, because the garden was really a way to begin this conversation about how do we educate our children about the food they eat and how it impacts their body and how all of that affects their health.
Near the Chinatown neighborhood of Los Angeles, students at Solano Avenue School are taking the First Lady's advice. They're participating in a 100-mile program that keeps them running all year.
A lot of kids at home, they sit in and watch TV, and so I want to be like one of those kids who get a lot of exercise. What's exciting is that I get to stay healthy while having fun.
The idea is spreading at a sprint.
This year we're serving between 80 and 100,000 kids. No, we have schools in all 50 states. We have schools in 3 other countries, and soon to be a 4th and a 5th country.
Back in South LA, Lawana Biggers is working hard to stay healthy with the help of her son's green thumb and her determination.
Now I don't have to go out and buy junk food or cook fried food. I can go to Aaron's garden and get fresh vegetables.
Growing good habits for a lifetime. For Full Frame, this is Sandra Hughes in Los Angeles.
Joining me now to discuss the latest efforts in the fight against childhood obesity and juvenile diabetes are Dr. Stephen Middleman. He's the director of the new Diabetes and Obesity Program at Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, and David Binkle, director of Food Services for the Los Angeles Unified School District. I want to welcome both of you to Full Frame. Steve, why don't I start with you? I mean, you know, we're a society kind of fixated on numbers, figures, you know, but you know that there's a name for every number, there's a face behind every figure. So frame things for me. I mean, you're dealing with these kids, and you know, a lot of kids are going through acne or other issues, but this is a whole nother issue, obesity, juvenile diabetes. Talk to me about some of the things you see and how tough it is for these kids.
Well, sure, I'd be glad to. So, you know, obesity actually affects every part of a kid's life and the family as a whole. Often, you know, they have these other problems, acne, social anxiety, but the obesity or the weight problems can really make things worse. It affects their self-esteem, affects their school performance sometimes, how they interact with their peers, and how they feel about themselves.
So what is it, and how might a parent detect it?
Well, obesity is defined based on your body weight in relation to the height. It's called the body mass index, and your doctor can help you with that, or there are a lot of websites that can help you calculate that. So children who are greater than the 95th percentile in their BMI for their age and gender are classified as obese. Overweight is classified as a BMI greater than 85th percentile, and like I said, you can calculate that from the height and the weight.
Let's talk a little bit about the district. I mean, this is a huge district, the second largest in the United States, 650,000 students.
Right.
What do you do on a daily basis to try and address this issue? Because it's something that permeates the district, isn't it?
Right. It certainly is. 80% of our children qualify for the federal meals program, you know, essentially living below the poverty level. So it's an issue of circumstances of poverty for us as well. And so what we do on a daily basis is really to try to drive the nutrition so that the children have something to eat to be able to learn in the classroom. So what we do is really strictly follow nutritional guidelines from the federal government.
What is the linkage there between poverty and this issue, do you think?
Well, I think it certainly is for our families and our kids. It's an important piece for the kids to be able to have the functions of everything from social you know, interactions all the way to the ability to be able to learn. So each part of the day, including you know, what they're eating and how they're eating and how much time they have to eat, it greatly affects their performance in school. And of course we take, you know, academic performance as the measurement. And so for doing things like testing, it's a real critical piece to it. But it's not only eating, but it's also the exercise.
And Steve, type 1 diabetes, there's this common belief that that's it. But kids are developing type 2 diabetes as well, aren't they? I mean, what are you seeing?
That's right. So about 1 in 5 children we see at Children's Hospital Los Angeles with the new diagnosis of diabetes actually has type 2. which, as you may know, used to be called adult onset diabetes, but now we had to change the name because more and more children are presenting with this type of diabetes.
And I've heard you speak, and you talk about what this does to the economy. I mean, was it something like $190 billion? Talk to me about the numbers, because they're staggering, aren't they?
There are a lot of different estimates. The number I like to use is $190 billion in direct medical costs in the United States alone attributed to obesity and its complications: heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, polycystic ovarian disease, liver disease. All these diseases add up. So that's not even including lost wages, disability. That's just direct medical costs.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about it is it's like this virus spreading out of control, because it's not just concentrated here in the United States. We're seeing it all over the world. So what is it about the food that we're eating now, or maybe our lifestyle and how it's changed over the years? Because it doesn't seem like, it doesn't seem like my parents, like they were having this issue or their friends were having this issue. It seems like this explosion. And I want to get both of you to weigh in, but I'll start with you, Steve.
Right. So certainly in the last 30 years is really when this obesity epidemic took off. And you hit on it. The food that we're eating is different. More processed foods, more high nutrient content with lots of especially carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, and less nutritional value. And then on the other side of that is less activity. Kids are spending less time outside, like maybe your parents after school would run around for the rest of the day. Now kids are sitting on their computers, playing on their phones, and spending very little time doing exercise.
Yeah, well, David, my parents, you're not watching TV, you're getting outside and playing.
Exactly.
It doesn't seem like, but it's not just TV now. It's the computers, it's tablets, it's phones. So what can be done?
Yeah, well, certainly technology has a big input for us because, as a school district, we're educating the future. And so what we have to do is really get that balance of that fine line between how do we get them also outside with the activity. But in terms of nutrition, what we've done in our school district is to really put policies in place that address this, that really focus on things like fresh fruits and vegetables. Just all the way back maybe 5 years ago, we only spent a few $1 million on fresh fruits and vegetables. Last year we spent $20 million. And we bought it within 200 miles of Los Angeles. So when you start to look at what you can do, we can make an impact by the things that we are not serving the children. Things like corn dogs and chicken nuggets and pizza, we don't serve to children in our school district. We really focus on health, nutrition, and making sure that it is good, balanced meals that we're giving our kids.
But David, when you were a kid, I know when I was a kid, my parents were always like, eat your vegetables. I didn't want to eat the peas. I didn't. How do you get kids to think that it's okay to eat the food that they should be eating?
Well, I think it's twofold. One is that it's like us eating as adults. It has to look good and taste good. The second piece is that you have to keep reinforcing it. You have to keep saying, hey, here is an offering of edamame, for an example. Our children eat edamame, jicama sticks, raw sweet potato sticks, but it's not that what they're used to. And so we don't give them a choice of putting something else that may be a carnival type of a food, that we wouldn't give them as an option. So this is what we have. In fact, we've done a number of initiatives like Meatless Monday campaign. And so all of our children have that ability to be able to have a meal that is meat-free on Mondays.
You're at the front end, you're at the back end. As a parent, it's great if my kid's eating this way and stuff, but if they're not and I end up coming to you, can you talk to me about what it's like to be there with a young kid and the parents there and say, look, I hate to tell you this, but he's got diabetes. I mean, that's got to be really tough for them to get their arms around.
It certainly is. I mean, diabetes is, of course, a very severe disease that requires a lot of treatments, a lot of appointments, blood tests, and the like, and it really changes one's life. We really try to intervene before that part, and David touched on it. A child, if left to their own devices, will choose the chips. They'll choose the pizza. Right. But, I tell parents they'd also smoke cigarettes maybe if you gave it to them, and we're not giving them cigarettes. When they're asking for these things, you need to be the parent. You need to set limits, and we really need to change the norms for these children so that they're not used to all of these foods, and then when they go to school, they complain about the fruit. Right. They need fruit all the time. Right. They need vegetables all the time, and we need to change how our society is from the schools to the environment outside to the home so that there's a new norm and we can start changing how kids.
It seems to me that some people have a much bigger soapbox than others. They have a bigger bullhorn. So I want to get both of you to kind of weigh in on the First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama, and her Let's Move campaign.
Right.
How has that moved the agenda? How has that put this top tier in terms of top of mind for parents and the kids? And I'll start with you, David.
Well, certainly this is something that started the initiative back in 2010. The president signed something called the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act that was really a nutritional change for school meals across America. And it was really a promotion that the First Lady has embraced with the initiative. And what it's done is raise the issue in society. And so what we've seen now is actually a leveling. We're starting to see even a little bit of a decline. You know, we're a long way from where we need to be, but the fact is now we're not continuing to go straight up. And so, you know, when people say, well, it's not working, the fact is Los Angeles, we are a leader across the nation, and what has actually happened is our kids are participating more than they were when we had those types of foods. And there are fewer complaints about the types of foods because the kids don't have something to equate it to in a fast food restaurant when they're eating sweet potatoes. There's not a whole lot of restaurants that are serving sweet potatoes. It's becoming more and more. But I think for Mrs. Obama and for the administration, for the president, you know, to end the childhood hunger by 2015 as part of a campaign pledge, they're on their way to doing that across the nation.
And Stephen, I want to get your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I think what the First Lady did is extremely important. Often what I saw is parents were completely unaware that their child was overweight or obese, and a lot of people were unaware that this was a problem. And as you know, you can't solve a problem until you are aware of it and accept that it is a problem. And that's really what this campaign has helped to do, is increase awareness that, yes, weight is an important health issue. Childhood obesity is a huge problem. And that's the first really important step, I think.
Well, we've given some more focus to this issue. Thank you both for coming in. Certainly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Next, the spread of diabetes has reached epidemic levels in one of the world's largest countries, and it's set to wreak havoc on the health of an entire generation. New research shows that 114 million people have diabetes in China, making the country home to the highest number of diabetics in the world. Research also shows that weight gain leads to type 2 diabetes in Asians at an even lower body mass index than other ethnicities. And obesity is on a rapid rise in China, a dire consequence of the increased popularity of a Western diet packed with high-calorie convenience foods and a more sedentary lifestyle made possible by modernizing economy. And all of this is putting a strain on China's health services as the government works to cope with the diabetes epidemic. Joining me now to discuss the impact of obesity and diabetes in China and Chinese communities worldwide, Dr. Ida Chen, Director of Biochemistry and Molecular Genetics at Los Angeles Biomedical Research Institute at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. Small title. Dr. Chen specializes in insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes in the Chinese population. Thanks so much for joining us. And also Scott Chan, he's Program Director for the Asian Pacific Islander Obesity Prevention Alliance, and an organization that offers innovative programs to help the Asian and Pacific Islander communities in fighting obesity in Los Angeles. He's trying to challenge her for an even longer title. I want to thank both of you for coming in. Long titles, but let's start with short. Talk to me about the different types of diabetes, Dr. Chen.
There's diabetes type 1 and diabetes type 2. To understand the difference, we first understand that diabetes is high blood sugar in the blood. And it requires a molecule, a hormone called insulin to remove the glucose into your body, which provides nutrition, but at the same time decrease the glucose in the blood. Type 1 people do not have insulin because their pancreas is gone. Type 2 people have insulin, but the body do not respond to insulin. So we call this insulin resistance. So these are the two fundamental difference.
Why the staggering numbers in China, would you say?
It's increase of food, amount of the abundance of food and the type of food, modernized food. You know, the people used to eat vegetables or they have gardens. Now they have power bars or soft drinks instead. And also, it's more cars. People don't walk anymore. People drive around a corner just to buy a simple thing, you know. So the lack of walking, exercise, I hate to use the words exercise, the lack of physical activities and too much intake of food and the carbohydrate food. Now people always say, oh, it's the rice. It's not a rice, it's too much rice. And also is the rice that's too processed. If you, some of carbohydrate food have a lot of fiber initially, but these days all of our carbohydrate food, flour, rice, are all very processed, refined. So we lose all the fiber, but we continue to eat more.
Scott, it's obvious why she's involved in all of this, but as a layman, what got you interested?
I think just the connection to my own family. You know, I have a younger brother, he's 24, and my father, both of them they've always been super skinny, and they always say, well, I'm not gonna get diabetes, right? And my dad, ever since he came to America for the past few decades, he would always have 2 Coca-Colas every day. And, you know, surprise, the doctor said, hey, you know, you are almost gonna be diabetic. You gotta change your lifestyle. My brother, I mean, he's younger than me, and he's eating fast food 4 or 5 times a week. And it just, like, I wanted to do something about that. You know, I want to make sure that people like my brother who tell me, I'm skinny, I'm Asian, I'm not gonna get diabetes, I want to correct that. You can. You need to eat healthy, you need to be active. And I think that's my mission, you know? I mean, definitely help the community, but help my own family too.
I want to get both of you to weigh in on this, because I think it's interesting, you know, when you think about this connection between China and the United States. I mean, we all walk around with the tablets, all these devices, all these great things that have really kind of helped us here in the United States, all imported from China. And then when you think about what we've exported to China, we've exported our sedentary lifestyle and these diets and diabetes in a sense. I mean, how crazy is that? And I'll start with you.
Yes, it's ironic, yes. But this comes with abundance. You know, there are good sides of the being rich, having enough food is not more, it's more pleasant than hungry, starvation, the famine, right? But, you know, everything has the good side, and then there's a price to pay.
Yeah, well, I want to get your thoughts on this too, because, you know, she was talking about, you know, the sedentary lifestyle. I mean, if you look at imagery from China back in like the 50s or 60s, everybody's on a bike. Now, I was just in China last year, everybody's in the car.
Yes.
I mean, we have the same kind of traffic you see here in Los Angeles. It's been this shift. It's really interesting to watch, isn't it?
I definitely think it's interesting. I think a lot of people have been talking about going back to how it was, right? When people talk about what you eat, they say, eat what your ancestors ate. So eat what your great-grandfather would eat, how he would eat and what he would eat. And, you know, at the same time, how would they exercise? It wasn't really exercise. It was just ingrained in your everyday life. You were active. So I think, you know, it's great that we're getting technology and we're moving forward in many senses, but at the same time, how do we take it back and go back to what was working for us to keep us healthy?
So let's talk about on the ground, because I know you're in China quite a bit. What do you see there? And did you start to see it just kind of ramp up, or was it just an explosion?
I think it's almost linearly related to the abundance. So yes, I think it's an explosion, in the sense that if you look at the whole China, you know, it went from almost literally have nothing, very fast, building new buildings, have highways, have huge infrastructures, and come with its air pollution and so on. You know, so the growth is too fast. So therefore, I would call personally an explosion, because the growth is explosive.
But it's not like a light switch where you can turn it off, though. I mean, when you're talking about your own personal connections, your father, your brother, and the community at large, I mean, it's not something, and like you were saying, getting back to the basics, eating the way we used to. I mean, when we think of Chinese cuisine, I mean, that's a great way to live. Lots of vegetables, great food, and yet now this kind of shift to the West and the, you know, the high-fat, caloric stuff, it's very different today.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it's more affordable to be unhealthy, right? If we want to go back to what we used to eat and be active like how we used to be, that's expensive. If we want to, you know, people don't grow their own food in their gardens anymore. They don't. Organic is expensive, but organic used to be normal, right? So it's just interesting that that's what it is now. It's more expensive to be healthy.
Let me ask you about, you were talking about your dad. Is there denial? I mean, is the community accepting that this really is a problem, or are they, a lot of people still in denial, would you say?
I mean, I would say that there's a model minority myth within health, within Asians, right? People just assume you're Asian, you're skinny, you're healthy. But that's completely wrong, you know? All because you're skinny doesn't mean you're healthy. You can be skinny and still have diabetes. So I would say folks like my father, they denied it until the doctor said, hey, you're about to get diabetes, you know? And I think that's a very common trend when we work with people in the community. They don't see it as an issue. They're like, well, I'm not overweight. I'm not feeling any symptoms. And, you know, by the time you do get symptoms, it might be a bit late in the game.
But there's a lot of things that is genetic too. It's not just environmental, you know. So you can be skinny or fat if you have acquired a certain kind of genes. You know, you are more vulnerable to certain disease. It's not just diabetes, you know, heart disease or allergies and all kinds of things. If you have the genes runs in your family, you are just more likely to have certain kind of disease.
Well, we were talking about
now the environment gene interaction is very important. Sorry for the interruption. So the environment often brings out the genetic background of within the person.
Well, let me piggyback off what you're saying, because body mass index, it's different within the Asian community, isn't it, in terms of whether you're struck or not? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, it's a different kind of build. You know, there's this thing about the apple shape and pear shape. You know, the Western people tend to have more hip fat, and so it's more apparent that people are obese. Chinese, it's not that they're not obese, it's people are not used to identify the obesity in Chinese because it tend to be on the abdomen, you know, and as we always say, Chinese, at least my Chinese kind of people would say, you were flat before, how come you're round now? Because now you're like, you know, growing around it, and it's trunk obesity is what we call. So the BMI may be lower, but BMI isn't everything, you know, the fat is what matters, and the fat is not lower, percent fat is not lower. We have smaller bones, or smaller skeletons, but it's not really less fat. And this kind of trunk obesity, a lot of fat is inside. It's not just at abdomen location, but it's visceral, meaning it's inside your body, which is full of vascular vessels, and it's very inflammatory.
Yeah, I mean, I would just go on the record and say BMI is just a silly scale. I mean, it's height and weight, right? And it doesn't keep in mind anything that she just shared about body fat. You know, I could be skinny but have a whole lot of fat around my organs, and I'm going to be much more prone to other diseases as someone who, you know, maybe only 5 pounds lighter than or heavier than me.
Right.
Now, we've talked about the Eastern diet versus the Western diet, the acceptance of the Western diet, but what about medicine? Do they still cling to Eastern models of medicine and not as likely to embrace the Western style of medicine? You're a practitioner.
Well, to me, you know, I don't know, what do you think? But at least in my mind, by interacting with people, my colleagues in Taiwan, what we often observe is Chinese tends to be, we call non-compliant. They like to go to Chinese herbs, Chinese medicine, and they like to not take the pills that the doctor gave you. And they somehow think that because it's looking like a plant, looking whatever, is better. But those things have never been tested. It's not, didn't go through clinical trial, has a lot of toxicity effect. That's why among the Chinese, as a complication of diabetes, for example, is often on the kidney. You know, and in fact, even without diabetes, Chinese have a lot of kidney disease. I think these kind of Chinese medicine contributed to that. But you know, you may think differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think we work with a lot of clinics here in LA County, and the clinics tell us that, you know, when they're talking to their clients, the Chinese clients, they want a quick fix. They're like, oh, I have diabetes. Where's the pill? Where's the magic pill that will get rid of diabetes?
Right.
And you know, when they're told that it requires management, you know, you need to check your insulin levels, all these different things. A lot of them don't subscribe to it. They're like, okay, well, you're just holding out on me. What are the meds that I can take that I can get rid of this? So I think right now it's an issue of we can identify people with diabetes, but can we manage that diabetes over time?
It's a fast food nation. We want fast fixes to the fast food that we end up
I have to
consuming.
say, media has some responsibility on this, because there are often a lot of broadcasting on TV saying, oh, this is good for you, this is good for you. You know, population are very vulnerable to
the messages.
TV's the messages, because it's out there that they have no access to any other specific information. So this is what they see. So there are a lot of information that's not really that accurate, but they feel that, oh, look, there's this new thing, I should do this, therefore, you know, forget what my doctor told me.
We're just about out of time, but briefly, what's being done to reverse that? Like he was saying, I want that magic pill. How do you change that kind of mindset? And I'll start with you and we'll finish up with you.
Well, you know, so I'm part of a nonprofit called the API Obesity Prevention Alliance, and for us, there's been a lot of work that's been put towards telling people eat this, don't eat that, right? But there's not as much work around access. So for us, it's access to healthy food, access to healthy environments. So we're doing things like, you know, giving bikes to kids and, you know, really encouraging them to bike around their neighborhoods. We have a community-supported agriculture program, which is boxed vegetables that we connect directly with the farmers here, local farmers. And it's a lot more, and we don't have enough time, but if folks want to check out our website, it's www.apioba.org.
All right. Ida?
Well, that's great that you are doing so. I think there are situations we need simpler ways rather than go see somebody. You know, if population could just get a message, or the Chinese get a message that you're not invincible, just eat less and just do what your grandmother do, right? You can grow a little garden and digging a little dirt, and all that is good for you. It's actually not necessarily requiring a huge amount of advice from outside. You just do what your ancestors do.
All right. Ida, Scott, thank you both for coming in. Important topics, some great insights. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, young, urban, modern chefs, and most of them aren't even allowed to use the stove yet. Getting children excited about food and nutrition is always a daunting task. But in San Francisco, an after-school program called Yum Chefs, short for Young, Urban, Modern Chefs, teaches students as young as 5 how to cook. And the skills Yum Chefs acquire go far beyond a newfound appreciation for eating their veggies.
You know, I didn't do much cooking growing up. I really started realizing that cooking just brought me so much joy when I moved out and started cooking for myself. I found I was the happiest in the kitchen, and I started thinking, like, maybe I should do this for a living. So I actually went to culinary school. I loved cooking, but I realized that restaurant life is not for me. One of the chefs I worked for, she had a monthly cooking class at an elementary school where they brought chefs into the schools to teach these classes. And I volunteered with her one day and assisted her, and it clicked like that. Like, I realized, like, I don't want to be a line cook, I don't want to work in a restaurant, I want to teach kids. So I'm going to give you some... You know what? I have another really fun job to do. So YUM Chef stands for Young Urban Modern Chefs, and we teach cooking classes for kids and adults that focus on using local, seasonal ingredients that have an underlying message of you know, how to eat well and how to eat healthy.
Whoa, you guys are so fast. Okay. Go.
I think I've been going to YUM Chef for a year. Today we made pasta.
Oh, look how
So YUM Chef started 2 years ago.
That's because it's not right.
The founder of the school that we're in, the Catherine Michael School, where YUM Chefs is located, was looking to find someone to enhance their existing cooking project. So YUM Chefs is a project of open mind, and which are dedicated to the education and development of children. So they have different programs, and the kitchen program started in 2004.
When they first walk in, we always have them wash their hands really well with soap and water. And throughout the class, we'll tell them to just really politely, really easily, just go wash your hands.
I try to make it more exciting, not like, you should eat this because it's good for you.
One minute in your sleeve.
During the class, I have a lot of the ingredients kind of out. And I think that, I think food is beautiful, and I hope that they find it to be either exciting, you know, different colors are exciting. It's more fun with color, and I'm just trying to get kids excited about it.
Okay.
That leads to the nutritional conversation.
When I was grating lemons, I don't know why it got really small like a snake. And some people made lemon juice, but I didn't. I was just grating. And I got a new job.
We teach, you know, the kids how to measure. So there's learning about fractions and math. Then there's the cultural aspect.
All right. Where's your bowl? Stir. Did you get a chance to stir?
The kitchen is a great way to kind of use to explore different subjects, not just cooking and making yummy food.
The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pass out the ravioli. These are the pots. Do you want to turn? All right, guys. Homer. All right. Oh, hey, Lila. Can you go wash your hands, please? Thank you. Katie.
We get such good feedback about how the kids interact in the classroom when they come home after class, you know, talk about what they made. I think the best thing that I've heard is kids coming back into the class and talking about how they've cooked at home with their parents. And I think that is a true testament to the importance of this class, which is going back home and sort of being in the kitchen, being together with the family, and being more mindful about what you're eating.
I had to fold it because it was too big. You know, my dad and my mom thought this was good for me because then I would know how to cook when I get older.
You're kind of strong, isn't it? It needs to be cooked, right?
Too strong for my nose.
It's too strong for your nose? Okay.
I guess my approach to cooking and what I want to share with people is that cooking can be fun, and cooking should be fun. They can find joy in cooking.
They're gonna jump into the pot.
hope kids that take this class, as opposed to kids who aren't taking a cooking class, carry these skills through life with them. It's such a vital skill throughout life, and I think if you are in the kitchen, touching ingredients, you know, as a kid you're so curious, so you naturally wonder, where does this come from? It just helps you be more mindful of what you're eating and having a healthier lifestyle. I think if you don't have that connection in the kitchen with food and cooking,
Just a little bit, a little pinch, not a hand.
you probably won't lead as healthy of a lifestyle as someone who finds that joy of cooking in the kitchen. And I think these kids do find the joy in it.
That's it for this week. Join the conversation with us on social media. We are CCTV America on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. All of tonight's interviews can be found online at cctv-america.com. And let us know what you'd like us to take full frame next. Email us at fullframe@cctv-america.com. Until then, I'm Mike Walter in Los Angeles. We'll see you next time.